Alexandria is a city full of culture and history. It has so many famous streets with a rich background. But there is one street in particular that has always piqued my interest, which is the Naby Daniel Street. The Naby Daniel Street is one of the oldest streets of Alexandria, and it has maintained the same name for over 150 years. It's mainly famous for its many bookstands that sell used books for a cheap price. But the street also includes famous landmarks such as the Naby Daniel Mosque, the St. Mark Cathedral, and the Eliyahu Hanavi Synagogue. But other than that, there were three mysteries involving the street that captured my curiosity. First, who is the Naby Daniel? Second, who is buried at the mosque? And third, what was the truth of the story of the woman who was swallowed whole by the street? So first, who is the Naby Daniel? So I decided to go to the Naby Daniel Street and ask around.
اساسا ده كان جريح ده اصلا مش من هنا من باكستان او حاجه زي كده.
So the first story is that of the prophet Daniel. He was a prophet in the 6th century, and he was a Jewish man and a prophet of the Israelis. And that's why the Eliyahu Hanavi Synagogue, which is in the Naby Daniel Street, is often referred to as the Naby Daniel Synagogue. However, to pinpoint the prophet Daniel's origin was hard. Some people told me he was from Pakistan, others said Syria, and some even said Jerusalem. The second story is that Daniel was an Islamic scholar whose full name was Muhammad Daniel of Mosul. Mosul is a city in Iraq, and that he left Iraq and went to Alexandria, Egypt. So the next big dilemma is which one of them is buried at the mosque, or is it someone else entirely?
النبي دانيال اصلا مش مدفون هنا خالص. في مقام مدفون تحت في المسجد وبتجيله ناس من باكستان والكلام ده بينزلوا يزوروه. محدش يعرف.
So to the second part, whose remains are actually in the mosque? There's a huge debate about this issue. Some people believe it's Naby Daniel or Muhammad Daniel al-Musli. However, Naby Daniel's remains are to be found in Shusha, Iran allegedly, and Muhammad Daniel al-Musli's remains are claimed to be in Mosul, Iraq till this day, not in Alexandria. So there are other theories about whose remains are actually in the mosque. Some still believe that the mosque actually contains the remains of Sidi al-Uman al-Hakim, a Muslim storyteller. Other people believe that because the mosque was rebuilt in the late 18th century by Muhammad Ali, that there was a smaller shrine that existed prior to the rebuilding of the mosque. And that shrine was that of Zulqarnain, a pious Muslim who was mentioned in the Quran. So the last theory about the remains is that some people believe that Alexander the Great's lost tomb is under the mosque and has wreaked a curse over the street of the Naby Daniel.
هي وخطيبها والارض فجأة انشقت وبلعتها. هي لوحديها ما كانش يعني بعيد عن خطيبها. المكان اللي هي كانت واقفة فيه هو اللي غار بيها.
So this brings us to the last mystery, which involves a woman in the 70s walking down the street of the Naby Daniel with her fiancé when suddenly the street was divided into two halves and swallowed the woman whole, and her remains were never found. People claim that this occurred because of the curse of Alexander the Great's tomb.
كانت في حفره محفوره نزلت فيها ما طلعتش. كانت حفره عاديه محفوره في الشارع هي مش واخده بالها نزلت فيها ما شكرا ان كانت موصله لغايه تحت.
So when I asked people about this incident in the Naby Daniel Street, they told me it wasn't a curse, but because there were passages under the street, the woman fell in one of them, and there weren't enough resources at that time in Egypt to be able to retrieve the woman's body. So this brings us to the end of the three mysteries of the Naby Daniel Street. Even though some are still unresolved, it just adds to the charm and mystery of the street, and that is why it's one of the most interesting and cultural streets found in Alexandria.